Good morning. It's Sunday morning, so therefore, at 9 o'clock, here it is. It's time for a Sunday thought. Now, I had a lot of thoughts running through my head actually. With every Sunday, I got to think, what are we going to talk about today for a few minutes? Now, yesterday I was away locally, and I had two weddings, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And I haven't had weddings for a while. So it was having to get the energy going and everything else. So when I was thinking about today, I was thinking, the thought I came up with was, where do you draw your inspiration when life presents blocks or situations that maybe you don't like too much? Well, I enjoy doing the weddings, that's fine, but it's a lot of work. And then to present them really well, and everybody's one thing, it's a happy situation, everybody's happy that is there. So I drew some tarot cards today, this morning, and I also took out an insight card from what is called the God Box insight cards, and because which I always use on Monday, just as a really end. But I really like this particular card that came up. Excuse me. How would you feel if you really knew deep, deep in your heart that all is okay, that all is working out, and that God is always with you? Well, it is a God box, so they use that word. But on the other side also is really nice. All aspects of my life now perfectly unfolding, trusting inner knowing, a flower softly growing. And that was one thing I learned many years ago, that no matter what the situation is that you're dealing with or what has come up that you have to deal with, is that it's always works in the bigger picture. But what happens when we get things that are coming into us that we don't like, or it's overwhelming, and what am I supposed to do with this information, etc.? We forget the bigger picture. And so I find when you have an awareness, or maybe it's age, when you've gone through several of these situations that come out of the blue usually, all of a sudden, bang, there's a situation you have to deal with, or an emotion comes up. You've heard some news and emotions come up that maybe you're not familiar with. And it's really about recognizing, first of all, you're not alone on the journey, that you do have energy, whatever you call it, behind you, helping you, supporting you, giving you what you need and what you want. So it really has a lot to do with your willingness to receive inspiration, which is really basically what this is all about today. Where do you get your inspiration? And usually when we really need inspiration is when we feel our backs to the wall. We don't know what to do. How do we handle this? What do we do with this information? Or what do we do with this feeling? What is this feeling, first of all, often? And so it's really about part of the journey that you're on and growing, becoming mature, becoming aware, becoming a sense of a realization that there is a force, there is, whatever you call it, as I say, that is there for you. I found very early that I needed to ask for the answers. I needed to ask. Now, I did have a tool from the time I was 20 years old with the tarot, if you're not familiar to my work. And that helped immensely because I had a tool to go to say, like, what's going on. And because we read it in a very personal growth way, that helped. So when you're in a situation that you don't know what to do, it doesn't mean that you're not going through your feelings. It doesn't mean that you're running away. It doesn't mean any of those things. What it means to get inspiration is that you have an insight and you know that there's an end of this. You work through it. Sometimes some of the situations, I live in Canada, my family's in New Zealand, and I would get word with older parents. So you hear that they have passed on. What can you do? You're way up here. And it's sad. So you have to work through that. Now, I went back for my father's funeral. My mom I knew was dying. I went early, but I was really busy because then I was producing psychic fairs, and it was right before the tour, so to speak, was happening. So I took a couple of weeks and went down and then came back to whole pile of work I had to do. But I had the energy and the awareness and the strength to be able to do that. And so, but people can't always get away right away when things like that happen. People kind of always just get up and go and travel all around the world, halfway around the world to be that. Actually, I'm smiling because my brother phones me up and he says, can you do, give the eulogy kind of thing? And it was like, what? So I literally cried all the way in the airplane to New Zealand, which is like 14 hours in a plane. I cried as I'm thinking about what I'm going to say about my dad. And, we talk about we have a problem parent. Well, my father was my problem parent. But anyway, I worked a lot of stuff out, and I recommend people do that if they have a passing of someone that they've, is very important in their life. Take a quiet time and think about or speak or write it out what you want to say about the person. I do that now. It's like I take time to go through. It was a great learning experience, even though everyone who was around must be wondering what was running with this woman who's crying all the way. But it did help tremendously, and I was able to deliver. And even my one of my brother-in-laws, who was not an emotional guy at all, said to me, "You did a good job, kid." Because I was really, he was kind of my other parent, my sister and him. So anyway, you see, it's like, where do you draw your inspiration from? That's the key. Where do you go when life kind of piles up, when you're tired and you don't want to deal with anything and there's all these things to deal with? Where do you go? Rather than get confused and unsure and uncertain, and it's like, oh, it's too much, and you beat yourself up because you haven't found the answer or you don't know what to do. What I find is just take time, a little bit of time out, and really go inside, and wherever you draw your inspiration from, it could be a flower in the garden. Right now, the flowers are looking great around my place. It's really inspiring. When I'm not feeling so great or energetic, etc. And I can look at the flowers and they're just blooming at the moment. And then, I don't know. I find some people don't have what I would call a spiritual / philosophical base. And I find there's a loss when you don't have some form of philosophical base. Some people have a book they may go to. Some of them have Eastern philosophy to go to. Some of them have a really strong belief in Christianity or Hinduism or Sikhism. I've taught everything. I've taught people with all sorts of things. And I just call it the love force because that's where I can go, because I know it's always there. But, I can get caught up in my head. I can get caught up in my emotions as well. And I don't, even though I know deep down how this works, how this comes into being, I know it very, very well. I still get caught up in feeling sorry for myself, or I have to go through this, or I don't want this situation, or I'm tired, or whatever. But it's like, if I can get hold of that emotion, mostly it's motion with me. If I can get hold of what it is and name it, that makes it a lot better. But often what happens is like you just get tired and grumpy and, nothing's right. Nothing fits right. And when that happens, thank goodness it doesn't happen too often anymore, but it used to happen a lot. And so it's like you take a breath and you just calm down and realize it's all in the pattern of where you're heading. It's all something to work with and move through and go through, and you will get there. It's that in-between time. It's the time when you find or hear something you've come into resolution with it. That is when you kind of, can I say, be overwhelmed, not sure, what am I doing? And we kind of, not, it's kind of a beat up in a way, but it's also, then you're not honoring the path of your life. You're not honoring that everything adds. When I began to recognize that no matter what it was, if you take the judgment away, whatever the situation is, it adds to you. The trouble is, you don't know what it's adding at that moment. You have no idea what it's adding. And it's frustrating. Like, I often think, what is this adding to me? Like, this is not very good. And yet it does. It adds maybe teaching you patience, teaching you awareness, empathy for people who have maybe something similar. Now I'm kind of at the end line of a life, but in the middle of all my busyness, because I was running a business and kids and husbands and things like that, it was all jumbled up. But as I've gotten older in years and quieter in life, you can look back and you can see that I always had a force to lean on. And I don't mean it like, poor me. It was, yeah, it's there. It's got my back. And now let me figure this out. Let me sort this out. So that's where I get my inspiration. And that's why I talk a lot about the love force without a particular name, because when I first ran into that love force, it was so inspiring. And it was so, I can only add the word beautiful. And it was so there. And yes, there are times when I get caught up in things and I don't reach into it and use it, but it is there. And no matter what philosophy you have, no matter what your belief system is about a higher power of some kind or another power or a supportive power, doesn't matter what it really is. It matters that you use it, that it's there. And you realize that when you get up in your head trying to figure everything out, sometimes you just have to take a breath. And in that breath, what you find is you come back into your heart, you come back into your body, your eyes see clearer. And it's like then all of a sudden you know what to do. You know how to proceed. You know how to move forward. All of those things begin to take shape and place. Life is here to experience. I think we're here to learn certain things without making it really hard, difficult learning, but it's like we're needing to be aware of what beliefs and attitudes and judgments that we carry with us. Then we've brought into maybe from many lifetimes, who knows, from other planets, from all sorts of different things. I discover people bring in things. And then this life can be, if you choose to be part of the learning journey to move out of the repeated patterns that you've done for many times. And all I can say, I have seen and been around with my past life regression work, which is where I kind of really started out going inside for people and myself, is that often we just keep repeating the same old pattern. So it's time to break that. And that's where we've got to look to, where are we getting inspired? Where are we knowing that there is an energy that cares about us, that loves us, that wants us to succeed without any judgment on us? And that's the one thing that got me when I first experienced this. No judgment. I might have been, miserable or whatever, and it was no judgment. It was just like there. And somehow in the being in there and being in that love, which I talked about in that little card I had here, which I thought was really good. In the party, I'll read the little bit again. All aspects of my life now perfectly unfolding, trusting inner knowing, a flower softly growing. And that's what we do, is we grow, and that it's all okay, that it's all working out, and that God is always with you, however you perceive God. Now, the thing is, we've got to believe that, and a lot of us don't. And that's when I began to realize and form the phrase, everything adds. Good, bad, difference, doesn't matter. It adds to you to learn, to grow, and to become experienced, so that you find your true self and not the false self, and move into this wonderful thing. So this Sunday thought, I really want you to think about, where do you get your inspiration when you need it? Because we all do at certain times. What is it that keeps us going when we get tired about we are not completed? It's like a person running a marathon sometimes. If you have seen them, sometimes they're really like struggling, but they have that determination and that line. Oh, yes, they've trained for it for sure. But it's like we train to deal in life, because the one thing we do know, there's going to be news, there's going to be situations that we don't particularly like at some point. We don't always know when they're going to come. We don't look for them, but they arrive, believe me. And it's like a matter of you knowing where you're going to get your inspiration from, where you're going to dig deep, where you're going to put your chin. We always had the old English saying, put your chin up, go on ahead, chin up. And it makes a difference because your chin's down, you're in your emotions big time. You got to have your chin up, come out of it, and go ahead. But I just remembered that my dad saying, chin up, go ahead, because it's a matter of the journey. And what is it we learn as we move along, knowing that we are supported, we are loved, we are cared for. And that can be a great inspiration when things get tough. I trust nobody that is listening is having tough times, but I do know that life presents them. Lots of good and a little bit of rough water. We hit the rough water. So please find out what inspires you, what keeps you going, what lets you know that you are supported by the universal love force so that you can handle whatever comes. Because no matter what it is, excuse me, it's adding to who you are in the bigger picture. You have a great Sunday. I'll be back tomorrow night with mental mind treatments, and which I look forward to actually a lot. And yeah, have a good day. Oh, it's Memorial Weekend in the States. So for my US people, happy Sunday there, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.